Quiet on set. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Let's Poddy podcast with your host, Benji Weatherly. It's the podcast where you learn absolutely nothing.
Looking for a new way to elevate your look? Let's Poddy's newest sponsor, Ponto Footwear, makes the perfect addition to your wardrobe. Their Pacific Dress sneaker is responsibly made with recycled materials. And with its water-resistant and slip-resistant design, you'll be ready for anything. Use our code PODDY15 for 15% off on your order at pontofootwear.com. All right, well, today's guest is one of the most iconic families we have in our sport. Luckily, our sport is small enough to where we actually all get to hang out. And back in the day, trade shows that used to be part of our surf culture are all gone. And the place that we're at is almost like a museum of all your artifacts of things that I grew up looking at and having fun being a part of, like the Wave Warriors videos, for instance. Can you just tell us a little bit how that all came about, the beginnings of that?
Well, in the very beginning, I was a surfer.
No. You can start at the very beginning. Sorry, I'm all over the place. I'm actually kind of nervous for the first time. This is fun. You guys, the Fletchers are, I mean, just having Debbie just look at me is nerve-wracking enough. So I don't know. I just start from the beginning. I watched PT's podcast with you last night, and I didn't know you're from Huntington, like the very beginning. So it started in Huntington?
Well, I grew up in Huntington, and all the people would come from all over, like Hawaii mainly and California to surf the Coke contests at the Huntington Pier. And that's, being in Huntington, I got to see all those great surfers and got to surf with them. And I was really fascinated by the Hawaiian surfers. And then David Nuiva moved to town, and there was nobody better than David Nuiva at the time. He was teaching us new things, and then he was just a little guy, and then he just grew up and then he was like a snake. He could just throw his board one way and carve it another way. Anyway, it was great, and Corky Carroll was around at the time, and he got me a job with Herbie, and I was 15, turning 16, and I made enough money to do what I wanted, was to go to Hawaii. And so I got to Hawaii at 65 and was surfing and, with all the greats, and they just discovered Pipeline a few years before that. But, I was really interested in surfing. And so when I came back, I was working for Hobie, and Phil Edwards taught me how to shape surfboards, and he was the best surfer in the world also. And he spent a lot of time with me and the guys around the shop, so I really learned a lot. And going back to Hawaii all the time, I got to test out different boards, different shapes, fins and rails. But Phil Edwards was the man who put rails on surfboards. And then I got to work with Brewer and the Guns. And, I was really good friends with Jeff Hackman and Jock Sutherland and a bunch of other guys that, the same age, surfing. But Jeff was sort of the same size I was, and he won the Duke contest in 65 on a Brewer board, and he left that at my house. And I lived at Sunset, so I got to use that all the time and learn a lot. And then 67 came around. I had a shaping room, and Brewer used to shape in it. And then Gary Chapman, Al's older brother, and I moved into a house at Off the Wall, and we looked up the beach, and we'd see these perfect rights coming down the beach. And all the big wave riders would look at Pipeline from the beach park or from the right-of-way, and so they couldn't see these rights. But we just saw the rights coming down the beach, and so we just started surfing them, and we called them Pipeline rights. And that was 67, 68. And to ride the place in December of 68, or in the winter of 67, 68, we started cutting down boards, stripping them and cutting them down. And we'd put a scab on the top is what we called it, so we could cut rocker in. And there was nobody doing this at the time. And that was the only way you could drop in, Gary Chapman, I lived with Gary, and he was just really forcing the minigun with Brewer. And I was doing my own thing because I'd learned how to shape surfboards. And, and Brewer was very helpful in all that. And then Hinson moved in next door, and we just really, it was a movement, and surfing.
Let me interrupt. Are we on an Art Brewer the first time you guys started going in the back door, pipeline rights? Or what kind of board was it the first time you guys started?
We're talking about Dick Brewer, the shaper.
I mean, I'm sorry.
Art was
I meant Dick Brewer.
Photographer, and he showed up in '69.
No, I didn't.
Water shots.
I didn't mean that. Sorry. I'm saying
okay.
what was the Dick Brewer boards that you guys started going right on? Were those like sunset boards, big, like 10-foot boards? How big were they when you first started?
When we started surfing Sunset, I had Jeff Hackman's board was 10 foot, and it was perfect for me.
Yeah.
But the first guy I met at Sunset was George Downing, and he loaned me his 10-8, and it was just a rocket ship, but you couldn't turn it. It just, it flew. Catches waves really easy, but, this is back in 65, and
yeah.
It was a lot different.
When you guys cut those 10-foot boards down, that's what you're saying, and you're trying to get more rocker.
Well, we cut the we cut the hot dog boards down.
Yeah.
And then reshaped them, making them narrow, and put a scab, pulled in the nose, right. Pulled in the tail, something to fit the barrel at back door, right. Making the drop. Like Phil Edwards came out in 67, 68, and he couldn't make the drop, but he had 11-foot surfboard,
right.
Yeah. Catch the wave, but he couldn't make the drop. And you had to turn really quick and get in it. And that was the real start of miniguns and,
right.
to be able to ride the wave. And so, I always had a fantasy, with pipeline and backdoor. And, I've lived there a long time. And I met Dibby at the same time.
What year did you guys meet?
In 65, and
65?
We started dating in 66. I met her at Makaha Beach. And
really? That's awesome.
She was a tandem surfer with Don Hansen.
What?
From Hansen Surfboards,
yes. I know his son really well.
Yeah.
That's incredible. All the names that you've repeated are all the most iconic people that I grew up hearing about on the North Shore.
And Dibby's sister was 4-year world champion from 64 to 68, but I met her at Makaha. And her dad was the first Makaha surf champion for tandeming in 1951, I think it was.
Wow. I didn't know that Mom had such a surf history background. That's incredible.
Oh, that's she's been at the beach the whole time.
And is the Marty Hoffman is a part of your family as well? Is that no? None of the. I always grew up with the Johnsons, and the Johnsons would always talk about you guys being related to the Hoffmans. Am I wrong?
Well, she is a Hoffman.
Well, there you go. I'm sorry. I only know you as a Fletcher. Sorry. I don't know the whole story, but yeah, the Hoffman family
and
is
her sister Joyce Hoffman was
4-year
world champion.
She was the first woman to surf pipeline.
And that's in the 60s, right? 60s? That's insane.
That was 65.
We got to get a photo for the podcast of his sister. That would be insane. That's really cool. And your sister is still a surfer, or she still messes with the ocean?
There's a life-size statue of her in Dana Point. Yeah, she was one of the Times newspaper women of the year. She was a 4-time world's women champion. She was on the dating game. She was on What's My Line. She was the surfer at that time. And so my dad was a surf contest judge. He also was the largest supplier of printed textiles to the surf industry for at least 40 years. And so I grew up in the industry.
Yeah, big time.
And so when I was a kid, all the people that would come to my house were Bruce Brown and John Severson and Phil Edwards. And so when I met Herbie and he came to my house and all those guys were there, he kind of just fit in because Herbie was just like my dad's friends, so it wasn't some giant leap that I'd go out with a surfer.
Of course. You just already knew all the legends of the industry.
Knew everybody.
Wow. And your sister was world champ.
Well, see, they were all my dad's friends. These were all the men that came back from Korea, and it was the first generation that didn't follow their fathers into business, and they started what is known as they started the beach culture. They started the surf industry. Yeah. And the way they started it was they wanted a job where they would have a customer that would go to the beach. So they started, whether it was the clothing companies, whether it was the movies, whether it was the chart house restaurants, they started all of these things so they could have a beach life.
That's right.
So it wasn't started with some great entrepreneurial idea of selling surf stuff. It was started so they could go spend the weekends at the beach.
That is the beginning of surf culture as we know it.
Her dad, Walter Hoffman, taught Herbie how to make surfboards.
What an incredible family. That is so cool. Yeah, I've
And
always heard about
And he
your
wrote
family.
that in his book.
That's incredible.
So,
and then your guys' family doesn't suck either. Your two boys have influenced me. I mean, me and
But see, and so when people ask, oh, did you want them to surf? It was just natural.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Everybody surfed. My family surfed. We went to the beach, and so it was just a natural thing. It wasn't like a lot of families that say, oh, I want you to be a surf star. There was never that idea. You just did what everybody else did. You know, you just hung out at the beach. So if you're hanging out at the beach, you start surfing.
And that's what your boys kind of, they're only ones that really just, I mean, I hate to say curse, but don't give a fuck. It's because they're just doing what they were born to do. And it's always resonated with their whole, I'm not going to call it an image, but they're who they are. And it's always been undeniable. That's why I love your family. But it's cool to hear the Hoffman side of it because they're so big in our industry. They did textiles. I don't know, Annie. Annie's my guest host, by the way. She's usually talking. But yeah, textiles means the clothing industry they started, right? They sold all the fabrics. And
like
stuff.
OP and
OP.
Catalina and
If
Laguna,
they needed fabrics, they went to
Balboa,
them.
Jansen.
When my dad came back he was stationed in Hawaii during the Korean War. And so he had radio duty at night, and so he went to the beach all day at Makaha and would shape surfboards and go surfing. So this was his idea, you know, and play the ukulele and all this. It was very much that kind of what you think about, that South Sea lifestyle. So when he came back, his father was called a textile, he was a jobber originally, and he did woolens. He made wool for men's wool suits. So when my father came back, and he's thinking, God, I gotta go in the family business. So he was trying to think how he could go in the family business, but do it kind of a new way, right? And that was the printed textile. That allowed him to have a customer that went to the beach, and then it was kind of the birth of the Aloha shirt.
That's incredible. I do remember Bob Hurley signing checks in the Hoffman Fabrics or Textiles, I think. Like he was buying fabric from your family. Everyone did. That's an incredible story. I mean, we can't even fathom how much you've seen in both you guys.
Well, he helped Quicksilver get going with the logo and all that.
Really? The
Gave
logo?
Stussy his first credit, and so it's
cool.
just kind of, and so
That's
it's,
insane.
I mean and so like when people ask about us being in the surfboard, we're in every aspect of it, and it wasn't anything planned or boy, we're going to go do this. You just kind of did it. And how do you support the kids? Oh, well, we'll be in the surf business because that's what we know, right? It was just natural.
And how did you guys start Astrodeck? Like that was probably the early 80s when you started Astrodeck?
It was the 70s.
Oh, it was the 70s. I didn't know that. See, I was around
76
until the 80s.
actually. And it was a liquid, and
Was
through
it
the
spray
years,
too?
you know, there was different people like Tom Morey and a lot of people, you know, researching and trying to make something better to stick on your surfboard. And like when you'd go out surfing, you had paraffin and candle wax, and you'd rub it on, but it was hard. It got smooth, and if you're out 3 hours at sunset, you know, it's
Fall off. No
well, it's slippery, you know, especially in the rain when it's all muddy out there. Right. So Mike Doyle came up with wax research, you know, and that was better, but then started playing around with urethanes and foam and created different things, full decks, and it was hard to sell. But I was making surfboards at the same time, and I started out with the Thrill Is Back and brought the whole longboard back because it went to shortboards and they didn't make longboards anymore. Mm-hmm. And so people went off to college or had families, and they couldn't, when they came back from college, all the boards were short and they couldn't find a longboard. So when I moved back here from Hawaii, when I had kids, I always had a longboard in my quiver. And so I started making longboards and called it the Thrill Is Back. And so, you know, I started making lots of them and made molds for Clark Foam, actually the plugs, but I'd watch him make the molds, which was really interesting. And anyway, then I got into that, making Astrodeck to have positive traction so you didn't slip off. And with the shortboarding, they were doing such hard turns, and aerials were starting to come around that, you can really get hurt slipping off your board, like, ripping something. And then the pro surfing was starting up. And, if you're slipping off your board, you're losing points and you're not making the magazines, and, you're hurting your sponsors and you're losing money.
Yeah.
So it was just a development. It just kept on going, and skating had a lot to do with the arch bar and the kicktail especially.
I mean, just your pad from the late 80s, it hasn't changed much. You guys were really ahead of the time. Like the Potter one that I used, it's probably from 1988 or something, 89.
Oh, yeah.
And it's still pretty
mid-80s,
much the same out there. Everyone's still got that same little arch in the middle, a little kicktail.
Yeah.
It's pretty much, so you guys are ahead of the time. That's pretty incredible.
But I also worked with Michael Ho with, we called it a thrasher pad. It was like a little moon-shaped deal.
I remember that.
And that was sort of the lead into the kicktail. But that was just sandal foam, We just played around with it and glued it on surfboards.
And what was Wave Warriors 1 was, what year was that?
Well, I started Astrodeck, and it wasn't going anywhere. And so then I started making little square patches, black and white and black and pink, and punk rock was in. And, everybody in Newport started buying it so they could change the color of their surfboards and put in different things. And we made dots, quack dots, and it was just a lot of fun. And I forgot where I was going with it.
No, just the first year we were talking about Wave Warriors, but
oh yeah.
I
so
remember
anyway,
those
let me finish here. So
Yeah.
I was in Hawaii, and we're making a promo movie for Astrodeck, and Ho and sailboarding and all this was in it. But then I shot so much footage, and I had such great footage that after the promo video, I decided to make a surf movie, because I had all these great surfers, using the Astrodeck, and put them in Wave Warriors. And that was the first surf video for sale. Now, there was other surf videos, for promotions like at trade shows and things, but they weren't selling them. So I took it up to Jack's, and they go, I don't know what to do with this. And I go, just put it next to the counter, and I'll come back and see, how they sell. And so they were all sold out. But the deal was the kids could watch the hardcore surfing, their best, their favorite surfer with hardcore rock and roll, and then go surfing, because before that it was you'd go see a surf movie, and then
Ticket to Ride
the
or
surf
one of those
was
kind of
flat the next day,
all
But
perfect
this
ways.
way you could amp up and go surfing.
Yeah, it was definitely that. I mean, Wave Warriors 3 was the reason why I wanted to be a pro surfer. Just Archie's part, Christian's part, the music.
Can I say something about that? At that time, with the magazines and everything, the magazines were owned by the advertisers, which is understandable. They need the money to print and everything else. So Herbie felt that a lot of surfing that was happening wasn't being exposed, because the big manufacturers, they had a certain look that they wanted that sold their clothing, right? And so he was doing Wave Warriors because he was then able to showcase surfing that he thought was really pushing the envelope. And so this was something that wasn't really kind of cultivated in the powers that be, because it kind of made their teams obsolete overnight. So the kids liked it because they're going, yeah, dude, that's so rad. The companies are going, wow, we're not really that stoked, right? And so it was kind of interesting, because we just thought surfing was kind of this rock and roll idea, right? And it was, and that's what the kids liked. And so we started doing mail order, and so the videos just really started to take.
That's how you used to get it back in the day. You'd have to order it through
Yeah,
the
and-
magazine. Is that how it worked?
We did a mail order ad, right? And we were in the same building with Surfing Magazine. My dad owned the building, and so there was kind of a little, right? But it was kind of interesting. And see, we just thought of surfing as Wave Warriors, these two riders that were just extraordinary. And the surfing world, or the surfing kind of establishment, They wanted it much more student body, much more, clean, and we like the kind of subversive and kind of off the hook, right?
Yeah.
And so we did our own thing, and they didn't like it much, and we were buying advertising and stuff. And it was just kind of interesting because we saw surfing as an outsider. And their whole deal was to make it more like tennis, just like Christian said. Oh, they're trying to make, and they were.
Yeah.
And they won.
They won it
They
right now.
did make it like tennis. They won. It took some years, but they won. And you go, but what did we lose along the way? We lost kind of that sense of a dream and that sense of freedom and individuality. And and it couldn't have stayed like that forever. But at least it had that moment that it was like that. And it's just kind of interesting, and so Wave Warriors is part of that history.
Yeah, big. Well, it is the history, yeah.
And it was kind of this tug between wanting it to just be this explosive, aerial, kind of rad thing, and the companies saying, well, then what happened was all the companies needed to sell more and more clothes. They got bigger and bigger, and they needed to sell more clothes, so the whole kind of drive in the industry was to sell back to school, and that's what really killed surfing, because it had to be A-okayed by the vice principal of the high school. So it changed all the logos, it changed the people that were going to get sponsored. They wanted it cleaned up, GQ, and that was it. And so I think that really changed surfing.
Oh man, yeah, you couldn't be more right about it. They got what they wanted on surfing. Yeah. It's evolution.
And and great, But I'm glad that we were kind of on this other side of it. It was fun. We did the Cabo contest.
Yeah. When I was 14, I got to do it the year Slater won it. I got beat by Slater, obviously, and everyone else. That was one of the best heats I ever had. Hakias. I had, remember Trent, what is his name? With the brothers that are from San Clemente. I had Machado. Remember Machado got stung by all the jellyfish in that heat? Do you remember all this stuff? It was so long ago.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, you guys had so much going on. But for me, it was a time in history. I was 15, but it was such a cool event. I loved it.
Yeah, it was.
That was back when Cabo was Cabo, too. That was real Cabo. We even stayed in those little, shack things that were right there by the bathrooms. Yeah, it was, but that was good. Yeah. Slater got the cover, I think, of Surfer Magazine on that trip.
Kelly did, yeah.
Yeah. That was an awesome event. How many years did you guys have the classic?
We had it 2 years, and I was done.
You were done.
It was a liability, and you just go, it was so wild, and you couldn't control everybody, and there was the federales, with their machine guns, and the girls in butt floss, people barfing out their nose. You just go, oh my God, this is not going to end well. We got to get out of here. And so it was fun, and we got the videos of it, and it was fun. It was what you really wanted a surf contest to be. It was a party.
Yeah, it was like going to the U.S. Open when it was cool.
Yeah,
like
but kind of with the volume turned up, it was Mexico.
Yeah, it was Mexico. I was 15 and I wasn't drinking at the time, so I couldn't imagine how fun.
But we had all those we had a party playing of all the bands because we hooked up with Capitol Records, and so we did Cabo Wabo at nighttime.
Oh wow!
And so we had all the bands playing, Alice in Chains and Armored Saints and all of them. So they all came down to surf with all the. So all the rockers were surfing with all this.
Well, you remember the rock and roll on the beach, too. Mm-hmm. We had a big stage.
That was a fun time. And you guys been down there in a while? It's so different. Even the wave doesn't seem as good as it was. I mean, it was really fun back then. Yeah, it's heartbreaking. It's like the North Shore. It's like watching your family.
Yeah, it would make me feel nuts,
Yeah.
I have those memories when it was fun.
Yeah,
surfing used to be, I think surfing used to be more fun.
Yeah.
Going to the beach was more fun.
Yeah.
Now there's no sand. And you go, oh my God, even the sand has left. Holy cow. I said, is God talking to you? The sand has left.
Oh my gosh, right? Yeah, no, you couldn't be more right about the industry. It's definitely different, but it is evolution. But just going to the North Shore and having my family get kicked off the beach because it's too expensive and everyone that lives there now is not from there. Just the whole thing is just part of evolution. You just got to suck it up, move to Wailua. It's like you just got to try to still stay, But yeah, it's same in California, I'm assuming. Down here at the beach, all the people have been booted. It's so expensive here, right?
There's no sand.
And there's no sand.
There's no sand. That's what I find really interesting.
Do you guys live in San Clemente or Dana Point?
We live in San Clemente.
And you guys always been there since the 70s when you had family? Same place? Yeah?
No, we've lived all over. We lived on the beach, and we lived in Dana Point. We lived at the beach at Beach Road, Palisades. Yeah, but we lived in San Clemente since the late 80s.
But you never went back to Huntington? No way.
No way.
No way. No way.
That's just flat.
My parents were from here, so we lived closer to my parents.
So your whole family's from San Clemente? And did they run all your guys? It was more L.A. where all the companies were based?
No, my grandfather was in L.A., but then my father and my uncle who worked together, they moved to Santa Ana, and then they moved to Mission Viejo, and that's where the company is now.
Cool. Is it still selling to a lot of the brands?
No, most of the brands went offshore and got package deals, right? And so they had to reconfigure what they were doing. Life changes.
Yeah,
and so
I could
you
imagine.
got to change along with it.
Diversify for overseas people paying peanuts. Well, shoot. And then you know what? I don't know the final chapter of Way Warriors. Was it 4 or 5?
Actually, I did 5.
5, right?
Yeah.
There's 5. And when was 3? That was when you had some art in it, right? Wasn't Christian's part have all your art in it? Yeah. So I didn't know Herbie was an artist as well. I had a feeling because of all your boards always had crazy art and stuff. Was the arrow? Was that your drawing? Your logo?
It was my logo, yeah. We just tape it off on surfboards and use
Fletcher
pigment.
means arrow maker.
That's it?
In Old English, that's what it was. Fletcher was an arrow maker.
Cool.
And Herbie's part American Indian, so with the name Fletcher and the arrow, it kind of just...
That's awesome to know.
fits together.
I love that logo too. It's always been a really badass logo. And this board right here behind us, that's a brand new one of your shapes. Is that a plug that you get from the manufacturers? Do that, or do you shape them?
I have it in the computer now, so I just,
Bust
sand them or have somebody else sand them out.
Herbie just had a nice art show 2 weeks ago at a new gallery in LA, and his art does quite well, and it sells globally. He's done shows with Gagosian, which is the premier gallery in the world, and so he's done big shows there, and so he's become quite a successful artist.
And are you still doing art as well?
I market the art, make all the stories for it, write books.
But you have tons you've already put down. Because, I follow you on Instagram, and I see a lot of art there. Is that
she's a good artist.
I just love... Hey, you have like 3 times more followers than me, so I don't even want to hear it. You're a... what do you call it? Influencer.
No, because you know what? Here's the thing. Like I was talking to my grandson. See, I can post anything. I'm old enough. I can post anything I want. So I post anything I want, and it's funny and it's interesting, and people like it because they go, "Oh, you're so old that you're really funny." I said, "Oh, thanks." I kind of like it. I look at it like another piece of art. It's kind of funny.
So you're not messing around with art. It's all past art that I see.
No, I am. We just bought some. We're making a sculpture garden. This is our. I just bought a bunch of acreage in Palm Desert, and it was originally owned by my grandfather, and I was able to buy it back. And so Herbie and I are going to do a big sculpture garden.
Cool.
The 2 of us.
Is it by the airport in Palm Springs?
Palm Desert.
Palm Desert.
And I have 7.5 acres that I'm making a sculpture garden.
Cool. That sounds
No
fun.
kidding, dude.
In the winter, though.
We're going to make Dibby in Herbieville. How cool, right?
That's cool.
And you just go, it's going to be great. And so there's no restrictions, there's no HOA, and so we will really be able to make some things that we'd like to make.
Good.
And
like 20 foot high and big giant thing.
let's do it, man. We've done everything. Let's just go do it.
Fun.
Yeah.
I love that you guys live your life the way you want to live. That's awesome. Which, does it really? No, of course.
You know what? If you're waiting for permission, no one's going to give it to you. So I guess you just got to give them all the finger and say, I'm doing it.
Yeah, that's why Frank Sinatra took off and moved out there too, so he can live his best life. It sounds like a cool place to live, to be honest. Kalani Rob's got this wave pool I'm sure you guys heard about. We get to go do it in a couple weeks, and it's like
Have they opened it?
well, they haven't to the public. We're the first public to get to do it on the 21st. We rented it, but they're riding it every day, and it looks incredible. You know what? Theirs is the one that I like the most. It looks like a pool because it's crystal clear, and it looks like you have a Mai Tai and a raft, and it's just perfect barrels. So, yeah, it's pretty neat to grow up in this, or to see it happening for the younger generation. Like, these kids don't even know. Like, we were just talking about the wave pool that me and him got to see was in the North Shore movie. It was just like this little whitewash that peeled through. The one that Kalani made is a legit barrel. It's pretty incredible.
That's cool. I'd really like to see it. Kalani calls me and keeps me updated.
So yeah, you're going soon.
Is it American Wave Machine technology, or do you know?
That's we just had a podcast with Kalani. He didn't really explain that part, but it's Lockefeld is the guy, and that might be his company, I think, right? Yeah.
Because there's a couple of them, because I kind of pay attention, because I kind of like, there's different technology, right? I call Kelly, and he was in South Africa to ask him about his, right? Because he goes, well, I have a dream, I'm going to make one, right? Anyway, so, but it was kind of interesting. But there's a lot of technology out there, and I think a couple of them will rise to the top to be, you know, it's just like an iPhone or whatever. Do you understand? There's a lot of players at first, and then a couple of them really stand out.
Yes, and that definitely will be Kalani's and Kelly's. I think Beshan's is almost done. If I keep hearing rumors about his being really good.
I know that Nathan did the one, they did the one in Hawaii.
Oh, right, and I heard that one's really fun. It's kind of a different kind of way. But
Nathan said, well, yeah, but it's really not so much for beginners or anything, right? It has more of a suck to it, right? But anyway, it's just kind of interesting.
I know my friends surf that more than they surf in Hawaii now. It's Rick Ross and all those guys. They send clips on the thread over and over, and I'm like, because it does feel like surfing. Like they carve really hard and stuff, and no one in my age group's doing airs as much. So they love just doing big cars, and they don't even go surf like town anymore in the summer.
It's a stationary wave.
It's the kind of like the Flow Rider one, you know, and it looks fun. They all look fun. Just you saw Blair. Their last podcast is a skimboarder from here, Blair Conlin, unbelievable kid. And did you see that clip he had on Instagram where he does the shove it in front of the whole crowd? So he's incredible. But yeah, this is definitely any questions. This is my producer, Annie. You guys met, but she always kind of does a little research on our guests and asks some cool questions.
Yeah, so one question I had was, because I saw you and a small group were the first people to really perfect the toe-in.
Oh, yeah. Well, the first toe-in was actually like that. I don't know.
Right.
It might go way back to Duke Kahanamoku in a boat, you know, Waikiki, because they take movies off it and do all kinds of stuff. But the big wave riding, I got Christian towed in about 76. He was, you know, down at Pochi in front of his grandfather Stibby's dad's house. And then I was just wanting to get my jet ski to Hawaii. And so I got it to Hawaii. I rode Malaya and different places, Honolulu, and then finally got it over to the North Shore. And I rode it from 81 to 84 and trying to get guys to tow in. And I got Johnny Boy, Christian, and Nathan, you know, on smaller days like at Insanities. Mm-hmm. And it was pretty incredible. But then in 85, I got Potts out at, it was capping on the third reef at Pipeline. And so second reef and first reef. And so anyway, in 85 was the first big wave tow ins, and it was really cool. Nobody wanted to do it. They thought they were going to hurt themselves. But I had a tow rope, and I was swinging it around, and Potts went for it because it was big, and it was all over the place. And so it was, nobody was out, right? And so then I did a couple with Potts, and then all kinds of people paddle out, and then, but Potts was owning it, you know, and then Kong, Gary Elkerton, he saw what we were doing and wanted to get on it, and I towed him in a few times, and then Tommy Carroll, you know, world champion, how many times? 4-time world champ, you know, and Potts was a champ, and anyway,
and his jet skis, by the way, are not a wave runner where they're actually like really stable. He had like balance, stand-up jet skis.
It wasn't a couch. That's what
they weren't a couch. I mean, you had to like actually balance. It was like surfing.
And he wore his running shoes, and he stood up on them, and he did Waimea, and
the shoes helped the grip, obviously.
Well, on jumps and
oh, that's right,
because they were training shoes. They had spikes sort of on the bottom, and I'd put in thick pads with different stuff. Anyway, people saw it, and they started doing different things.
Wes Lane's brother was your partner, right? Didn't you guys?
Randy Lane and I were friends.
And I mean, they were doing jumps. I mean, it was more of like a sport, you know. It wasn't just for surfing. But back in those days, you had video parts in the Wave Warriors videos. He had video parts of him on like surfing like 12-foot pipe with it and stuff.
Yeah, on closed out Waimea.
Exactly. Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, it was the biggest waves ever ridden at the time, which Peter Cole told me.
Wow, that's a good person to tell you that.
And Scott Farnsworth was outside and got caught inside and almost drowned, you know.
And they were like 20 years from lifeguards using them at that point for rescuing you guys.
Well, I got them sponsored, you know, Brian Kailana.
What year? That was probably in the 90s when they started.
I don't know when it was, but it was when Yamaha came out, and they were really stoked on on the wave riding stuff, and Kawasaki wasn't. So anyway, Terry Hui called me up, and he goes, God, I just rescued somebody at Pipeline and his board. I saw a tombstone. And I ran out there on the wave runner, right, and pulled him up and rescued him right on the ski.
Wow.
And then brought him back to the beach. He goes, "These things are unreal," and it was his first rescue with it. And he called me and thanked me for turning them on.
Imagine how many people have been rescued with those nowadays. I mean, everyone.
It's gone bananas. I mean, everybody has a couple of them. It seems like.
Yeah, they've definitely helped a lot of my friends not.
And I was really stoked, and it changed surfing and changed big wave riding. I always thought, that they could ride a jet ski and go out and check out the reefs, because when the big waves like that, it moves around on the reef, and you gotta learn about how it's moving around, and the more they did it, the better they got. And they got so good at towing, and where the waves were breaking, they started doing the paddling again.
Yeah, that's it.
They're paddling in giant waves, and they
So
can
it
get
must be
around, and they have the rescue.
It must be fun for you to see what's happened, right? I mean, do you ever go over to Jaws and just go up and check it out on skis nowadays and just look at it?
Oh yeah, I take photos. I go around to the left and take photos, and I got great photos of
incredible where surfing's become,
2005 or 2004, the year that Bruce Irons won the Waimea Eddie. Mm-hmm. I went to Jaws and photographed Laird and Dave Kalama and those guys, and then hopped back on the plane after that and went and met Bruce and Kelly at dinner.
That's awesome.
With Dennis Hopper and Julian Schnabel, and we played around and had a good time.
That's so cool. I know you've seen pretty much everything that's happened in surfing. Were you back in the 80s? Did you go to a lot of the Pipe Masters and kind of throw parties at the house there and everything?
I didn't throw parties at the house. But, I always went there and we filmed. And
yeah, I remember the boys. I lived next door to you guys on the North Shore, the Jerry house, and I'd always hear Nathan playing Motorhead. That one song we'd always play. I always tell Nate that when we hang out. I remember you playing this one song over and over.
Well, that's how he learned. He learned hardcore rock and roll because doing wave wears, I knew a lot of different musicians, and they always loved it. They I'd go to the record plant and hang out, or A&M record.
Yeah.
And
Lost at Leilani's. I still have that stuck in my head, that song.
Nathan got sponsored by Sammy Hagar for his clothesline for a while. And
Red Rocker.
Right. And so we knew all these guys. They all wanted to be involved. Surfing was rock and roll.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't.
What was Quicksilver's tagline?
If you can't rock and roll, don't come.
Yeah.
Don't fucking come.
Yeah, and Mickey Nielsen went to the surf ranch last week with us, and he's been, remember he got really hurt like 6 years ago on a motorcycle? It was the first time he surfed, and it's so cool to just sit and talk with that guy, just because growing up on the North Shore and seeing him, and he's doing really good, and he's just one of those. He's one of the wave, just that 1 second reef wave where he pulls him with his arms out like that. It's in my head for my life. Mickey.
I'd like to
Mickey
say something about Herbie that I think is kind of an interesting sidebar to all of this. Herbie's an inventor. Now, a lot of times I wished he would do something like invent the diaper, because there's a huge revenue involved in that, right? But he's being inducted into the Wakeboarding Hall of Fame next month because of his inventions that he brought into the wakeboard world.
Wow.
And so everything, just like from him cutting down those surfboards when he was a teenager, it was always about making the sport better, more accessible, faster, radder. How can you get to that wave better? And so I think that when we look at this long career that's lasted decades, the driving force for him was to make it better. And so that was Astrodeck. Oh, and let me get these kicks. Oh, okay, let me work with your feet because we can put a kick there because then you can do this trick. And so he made wakeboard bindings, and he changed the whole world of wakeboarding and everything. Was there a huge revenue stream involved in it? I don't know. There wasn't. I did the business, but anyway. But I'm just saying, I don't think that many people were as passionately interested in moving things forward and making the ride better for the actual athlete. And I think that has been the driving force. And so I think that that's been his contribution more than, when you look at it together and you say, oh, what's the contribution? It was always about making it better.
Yeah, and I see that. I definitely seen it my whole life. So No, for sure. Jake Burton was he was my father and best friend. And he reminds me so much of Jake. Jake always wanted to just make something better. It was never about money. It was, let's just keep.
I worked with Jake.
And and your son
on the
knew
stomp
really
pads
well.
and
Yeah.
you know.
I mean, he really
I
reminds
used to
me
make
of
a
him.
lot of them for Burton.
Yeah, like the little middle thing where your foot, when you get off the lift.
Yeah, the stomp pad.
Yeah. I've had those on my boards, and you're
Oh,
right.
and the gas pedal that you put underneath the toe of the boot.
Yep, to keep the kick up. That's pretty funny how much he reminds me
No,
of
Jake was cool.
Yeah, he was a bad man.
But that's what I want to say, because I don't think a lot of people see that. But
Yeah.
I mean, okay, so now he's in the Surf Hall of Fame. He's in the Surfboard Builders Hall of Fame. He's in the Wakeboard Hall of Fame. So there's all these different things, and it was always just like doing the toe in and all this stuff, right? It was always about pushing that ride and making it better and making it safer and making the experience, just pushing it farther.
Yeah, I mean, he actually has a quote, Annie, that's the thrill is back. That's when I think that was Way Warriors 2.
That was when I made longboards.
Yeah,
again.
yeah. It's about where you're at Malibu and you're like, the thrill is back and you're nose riding. But when did you come up with that quote? It was like
75.
Oh God, that was that long ago. But I just remember that quote, and it's like
Yeah, it was
one
when
of
I
these
started
quotes.
making longboards. The thrill is back,
Yeah.
because you could go surfing with your kids.
Right, but it's
you
stuck.
know,
I mean,
or,
it's
you
your.
know, on a longboard instead of this, being.
Not many
buoy.
people have a quote. You know what I mean? Like that's pretty rad.
And the Astor deck was.
Oh, that's what it was at the art show.
For the art
Thrill's
show,
back.
the thrill is back.
It's a
Because
bad-
if you see his art that he does in art shows, you'd look at it and you go, oh, you could tell that's Herbie.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's still that love of surf that he has been able to create a new vocabulary to render new things, right? And you go, oh, that's really interesting.
That is interesting. And I thought about the fact that I remember that quote as much as I do. That shows you how. I mean, it's stuck in our culture forever, and it's kind of cool. You don't think of any. It's not like Slater has a quote. You know what I mean? It's not like anyone else really has a quote. So it's kind of like the iconic thing that goes along with your love of everything that we have in our sport and all of the
Because when
sports.
you grow up, because they always tell you to grow up, don't do it. I'll give you a piece of advice. Don't do it. It is not what it's cracked up to be, right?
I
So
agree.
just stay loose and stay as fun as you can. Laugh at yourself, laugh at everything, enjoy your life because it's over quick.
Wow.
No, I just keep on moving.
Yeah, I was gonna say you probably want to get a new thrill is back, something
Yeah.
new, like
Well,
the
that's
art.
what I do art,
art.
and sculptures.
No going back, baby. No back.
And, when I go back,
It's true.
when I go back, I'm making books.
Right.
I'm doing books because I was a photographer and a cameraman, so I got movies and stills and, I made my first movie with Bruce Brown. It was called The Wet Set, and that was making enough money to where I could go to Hawaii. And I was in Hawaii, Greg McGilvery and Jim Freeman, the guys who did the IMAX movies, I lived with Greg and Jim, and we made a movie called Free and Easy on Maui and the North Shore. But I met Dennis Hopper later on, and I don't know, around 2000, and talking to him, and I was telling him about, oh yeah, I made a movie with Greg McGilvery. It's called Free and Easy. He goes, yeah, I saw that movie, and we made Easy Rider afterwards. So I just went, huh?
That didn't floor you or anything?
It
Oh my
floored
God.
me. I couldn't believe it. But he always loved surfing. Like he was in the drama down in La Jolla at the theater, right? And at lunchtime, he'd tell me he'd go down to Windansea and hang out and watch all the surfing going on.
Is that where he did his theater work? Is in La Jolla when he was coming up?
I don't know. That's just a story he told
story?
me. Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool.
That is pretty
That
cool.
He loved surfing.
Yeah, Windansea Beach Club must have been pretty intense. Was that 60s probably?
That's when my sister was in it.
She was in the Windansea Surf Club. That was a legendary club back in the 60s, right? Is she like in Hall of Fame of surfing? Have your sis must for sure.
Well,
Right?
all those cement things in front of.
Yeah.
They've got my dad, my uncle, my sister, my husband.
That's
You're like,
incredible.
oh, it's old home week, right?
That's so cool. And then I'm sure Nate's coming soon. And all these guys. And then Grayson too. It's you're a pretty proud grandma, right? I mean, you have.
I'm his agent. He fired me once. I'm back.
Oh my God, that's so great.
Oh, it's all good, and it's been interesting to watch him.
Right.
You know, become a skater because his skating was so much like everybody's surfing, and it was just another. It just keeps going, right? Now I've got 2 other little grandsons, and they're just surfing and skating all the time, and you go, of course they are. Why wouldn't they? It's fun.
Yeah,
You know, it's fun.
Nate is such a great father. Every single time I drive by to go to my mom's house at the skate park, he's at his van and he's there every day. I mean, he's such a good pops. He's a good, yeah. I absolutely love seeing him become a dad. It's really cool. And then, what about going in the future? Is it just going to be about kind of your art and finding new ways to kind of create new stuff? That's pretty much what it's all about.
Well,
right?
that's what I'm doing now. I don't know where that's going to lead. You know, art shows, and that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, is the flower thing it just keeps going and going?
You see these paintings here, these ones with the red and the waves on them. Those are all Herbie paddles up the Waimea River and soaks the canvas in the mud. And so that ground on those is the iron oxide mud from the Waimea River, right? And those are called the Bloodwater series because Waimea means Red River. And so many of the pieces of art he does are testaments to this life in surfing. One of the most important pieces he does, it's called a rectangle. And it's all boards that have been made into a huge sculpture that goes on the wall. And they're all boards that were broken by the greatest tube riders in the world at Pipeline.
Wow.
And so it really is kind of a commentary. And to me, you go from my dad's wood board in the 40s and you go to this giant rectangle, you can see the evolution of surf.
That's badass. Where's that piece?
The end.
There's a lot of them.
There's a lot.
For big hotels.
I think the one in Waikiki you have one, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
The modern. Yeah, I was wondering if that was yours. Every time you check in, it's right there.
And so it's
Oh, that's my signature, the
become
rectangle.
like a
Huh.
Thrill is Back.
I didn't know it was yours. That thing is
It's become
badass.
like the Thrill is Back. It's
Yeah.
become almost his signature piece. And he has a huge one at a place in Huntington. And he's got a couple of big hotels, and he's done big museum shows with them.
Wow,
And
those are
so
really cool.
there you have another way
They're
of
in Paris as well.
and it's just another way of it's a surf vocabulary.
Yeah.
It's just rendered in a new way, right?
Yeah,
so
totally.
it's still that kind of idea of surf.
Yeah, I like that there are real boards. I always like it when I'm checking. I look, I see
And they're all-
Andy's all.
So now everybody saves them and wants to be in a rectangle.
Right.
So I look at it and I think, gee, it's another way of wave warriors because here you have all those great surfers together. But it's much different now than it was at that time. It's broken boards, it's all logo driven, do you understand? And they're all
Yeah.
put together in this huge rectangle. And so I find that that's kind of a statement about surf at this time.
I do. Yeah, I do agree. Broken surfboards show it's like seeing a Formula One car after a crash. You're like, wow, that's pretty
Yeah,
insane.
you get to see all the logos, but it's also the paint jobs that they do on
Yeah.
them. You know, they paint their boards and, you know, and they're broken at the pipeline, so they're big boards and they got big stringers, and so you need a big space.
That's really cool. I love it. Well, I can't thank you enough for coming on the podcast, and I'm glad Debbie stepped
Debbie's
in.
the
She's
greatest.
so interesting, and I love hearing all your stories. And your family history is beyond. And now you married another one and started your own little history. That's
We've
really
been
neat.
together 55 years.
Nice.
Yeah.
You know, I heard you got her when she was pretty young.
Yeah, but you know, so we've seen everything change, and we've been able to be friends and kind of go through this, and it was just kind of like this fantasy world, right? That you go, God, who would have thought you could live a surf life? I mean, that only in America.
If they made a movie about your guys' life, it would almost be corny because it would seem like it's made up. Like, honestly, it's so insane to believe
Only
it.
in America, and you go, that's truly an American dream.
Yeah.
You know, that we could have had a life like this. You go, how fortunate. You know, and yes, it's changed. You go, so what?
Yeah.
Life changes, thank goodness.
I love you keep all your memories too. Not all of them. I'm sure you even have more than this, but just walking through here and seeing the photos of you guys right here in Cabo in probably 1981 and all the old art. Who did the big ahi? That one? That's cool. That looks like maybe
She gave it to me for my birthday.
It's pretty awesome. Yeah, but there's just so much in this room. It's incredible.
Well, I have a huge board collection that Herbie and I have managed to collect over the last 50-some years, and we've done a great job at editing it. And so when it is hung, we got to hang it in a museum, and you could walk through the history of surf from my dad's generation all the way to go see Nathan's board that he wrote at Chilpu. And so you say, well, and so you can walk through the entire history of surf and objects. And so I think that should be preserved because that world is gone. And it's okay, it's gone. It is, history just moves, it moves forward. And so I've talked to Kelly Slater about maybe making a space for it at his wave pool or something. He goes, oh, I have so many artifacts. I said, oh yeah, but that's just Kellyville. I said, we need to expand it, right?
100%.
But anyway, and so I'm trying to find a place for it, maybe at a wave pool, because I think the stories from this whole thing should be preserved.
I think you're right. A wave pool would be kind of perfect because all the people coming and going.
Well, and that way they can see it. The wave pool didn't just happen; it was an evolution
From
of
all that.
stuff.
Yeah, that's a
and
good
so
point.
I think to save this history and to allow it to be told by some people that were there, I think is going to be a huge. I think it should be preserved like that, because otherwise people Google something and they read it that was written by somebody that wasn't there, and it keeps changing the history. The history was the history, and I think it should be preserved intact.
Yeah.
And so I've saved a lot of this stuff, but I can't just keep hanging onto it forever, because it doesn't mean anything sitting here in a warehouse.
Yeah.
So how do we do an exhibit with it or something like that, or allow it to travel? So I'm working on a European connection to do just that.
Yeah, I think there has to be a.
That's my next gig, right? You say, oh, what are you doing in your spare time, right?
A Fletcher museum would be pretty
and
proper.
I don't even need it to be a Fletcher museum. It
Just a
needs to be-
museum, yeah, not
right,
the-
that tells a surf story.
Right. And, cultivated by the Fletchers.
Curated.
Curated. I said cultivated. I meant
right.
curated. Sorry.
And I think and it tells this great story.
Yeah.
It's truly an American dream.
It really is. I mean, I didn't know about the tow-in, but I always knew you were a jet skier before anybody. You were doing that so long ago.
Oh,
but
I always wanted a motorized surfboard, so I didn't have to paddle out,
Totally.
And I get in big waves easy. And so when I saw the jet ski, we got to test them.
Right.
A guy who promoted Bruce
That's in the
Brown's
museum.
Endless Summer.
That jet ski's got to be in the museum.
Well, I got it.
You still have some of the very first ones from the.
Yeah, I got
when were
4 of them.
Is that in the early '80s? I'm stupid with all the dates, but when did you get in the first one of the?
Well, that's what I was telling you. We got to test them. Shoot, I forget what year. 73, 74,
Okay, so
right
it's that
around
long
there.
ago. Wow.
Just to test them for Kawasaki, and we broke them. We were down at Dibby's dad's house, and the guy who promoted Endless Summer, he brought them down there. He brought 6 of them. We broke them all. But then they only made a few of them. And then in 75, early 75, I got one. They made 1,000 of them or something like that, and I was on the list.
So that was like the
I
first year.
prepaid for it. And so I got one, and it was interesting learning how to take care of them and modify them and, get them up the beach and carts. And
What year did you take them over? A couple years later to Hawaii? After
no,
getting
I
used to
had
them?
kids, and that was,
Yeah, because Nathan was 75. So it probably
and,
took a couple years.
so I didn't get mine over there until 81. And I hung out with the sailboarders at Ho'okipa because they were the only ones to ride big waves. They didn't even ride big waves on the North Shore anymore.
Wow.
It was the sailboarders that did it.
I remember the backyard. I lived at Backyard Sunset as a kid, and it was huge back in '86. Back in those days, windsurfing. Like original windsurfing he's talking about.
Yeah.
They would ride Jaws back
Craig
then.
Yester.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yester. Yeah.
He was 5th in the world, but I'd hang out with Mike Waltz, who found Ho'okipa and owned Maui sailboards, and Matt Schweitzer, who his dad invented windsurfing or sailboarding. He owned Windsurfer International.
I mean, you guys got to see that start too. I mean, you've seen everything. Now, it's a kite surfing is just insane, right? To see where it's gone. All these things you've seen the start of it to where they come.
Oh yeah, I love it.
Yeah,
I love all that.
Yeah.
I love to watch it. They used to buy my wakeboards to kiteboard with.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
The thin little,
She's a big
double-ender.
wakeboarder, actually. She goes every weekend. She loves it. Well, that's cool, man. I've honestly.
Well, I was probably doing wakeboards when you were born.
Oh, yeah. Well, she's only 23.
And I did bindings to take all the, people were breaking their ankles and stuff. So I used a high density foam and took a pound off of each boot. And so like Parks Bonifay,
And then he made the footbed, and so he built up the toe of the footbed so you wouldn't bottom out, so they were much safer. And he was the first person that knew how to print on the binding itself, right? And so we did all
Put
these
logos
rad
and
prints.
stuff.
And we did have a few hiccups, right? They were so cool that everybody would go, oh, those are badass. So we named the company Badass, not thinking that the wakeboard world was really that kind of Southern Baptist world.
Oh, right.
So there was kind of a hiccup with that, but live and learn, right? But that's why he's being put into the Hall of Fame, because they called up and said, we cannot not honor you for the contribution you made. Herbie was the first one to do fins on the wakeboard.
No, built-in fins so you could do rails
Right, those little.
without breaking them out.
Wow.
Put
Fun.
3-stage rocker in them so they could go up instead of through the lip,
Right. Yeah, no, I know the designs
and
you're talking
made them
about.
light. And, I worked with, have you ever heard of Scott Byerly?
Oh, Scott Barley, I've heard of him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Gator and all those guys.
Yeah.
All the tattooed freaking knuckleheads, right?
Yeah.
When I got the first kick flip on a
Wakeboard?
wake skate.
Wake skate, yeah. That's the coolest thing.
And so now I'm
That was
working. I just spoke with Art Brewer's widow. You know Art, right?
Yeah, I know Art really well.
And so she had asked me if I could help her, and so I'm going to help put together a giant book of Art's work that will document this whole thing. And I think that that's really important to have his story preserved, right? And so I thought, oh, that would be a really nice project to work on.
Yeah, his archive must be
Well, he
incredible.
moved in next door to us with John Severson, and John Severson was one of my dad's friends. So Art moved into his house. We're living on the North Shore, right? And so he's trying to sneak around the bushes, taking pictures of us. It got to be a real situation, right? Herbie gets John Severson loaded. John Severson misses his wife at the airport. He gets so loaded, he decides to come back here, sell Surfing Magazine, and move to Maui. So, I mean, it's a
That's
long
when he was making Pacific Vibrations.
No way.
I'm going to do my movie. I'm going to sell my magazine. I'm going to sell my house, and I'm moving to Maui. He did it.
He did it?
He did. Oh, cool, dude.
That's insane.
But so anyway, and so we've known Art for so many years, and he was such a close family friend, and he's got this just an unbelievable archive. But it can't be just his photos. He really was the eye of a time, and that's the story to be told.
Yeah.
So it goes beyond being a surf photographer into he really captured a couple of decades.
Right.
That we were talking about.
Yeah, those decades.
And so I'm gonna put together something, and
That'll be awesome. That'll be really awesome to honor.
It's going to be a great book.
I mean, I have his first book, so I can only imagine because I've only seen a little bit of it. Yeah.
See, and you just
Yeah.
go, oh, no, it's way bigger than that.
Right.
It was, I mean, when you look at some of his pictures, you know exactly what era it is. It's got the right color, it's got the right, look, the whole thing. And so it really is part of that American history that should be preserved.
For sure, especially now that we have no print.
Right.
And there's nothing left. I mean, you guys his Surfing Magazine was right next to you down here, right?
Yeah,
right in
the other building that my dad owned.
Yeah.
And Bob McNona told me that Herbie didn't dress well enough. Bob McNona ran it. And he said, oh, Herbie doesn't dress well enough to take him out to lunch.
What?
I'm a surfer.
And I looked at him and I said, dude, my dad owns the building, so I guess I beat you.
Oh, I know, right? Can you imagine? Oh,
That was so funny.
oh my God.
Well, I wore bally pants and a T-shirt. Sort of what I got on right now.
Yeah, well, what's wrong with that? Yeah. What happened to
It
that?
was just kind of funny, right?
Yeah.
They were printed pants, in Bali.
Yeah, no, I'd love the Bali pant. You
But
kidding?
I think that preserving art's archives, otherwise it just becomes, what happens?
Yeah.
What,
I know.
what happens to that life work?
Yeah. Especially
Unless
now,
it's
no one
not
knows.
presented correctly, do you understand? And allowed to be made into art. If it's just surf photos, who cares? You know what I mean?
No, I totally agree.
And if
The-
we can put it together and allow it to speak to a generation, I think then it has real magic to it.
And yeah, it's the culture. We don't have much culture left, really. And the kids, they don't even know anything about it. That's why I'm so excited to have him on.
Well,
we
it's
have
all
we have a
changed.
20-year-old kid. We're doing a 20-year-old kid that one of the Colopentos after this. And I thought, how cool is it? We're going to have the icon of his town, and then we're going to have this little kid that's probably doesn't know as much as he should about our generations, and they don't know anything. They don't care. But they will if we speak enough about it. And I mean, they eventually, like when you play a Led Zeppelin song to a little kid, he's going to be like, damn, this is pretty damn cool.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, it's interesting that that history's being forgotten.
Yeah.
And kids are becoming less interested in it.
Yeah. You're right.
And that's sad because the point is that history is there for a reason. It is a stepping stone.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think, but if you tell it in a manner that it's a great story, then you get them.
Right.
If you tell it to them in facts, they don't care.
Like my group of the Slaters and Dorians and everybody, we have so much respect for the history of where we come from. And I love that about our group. Like, you know, like Kelly, just like you have such a good relationship with him and you're always talking to him. He talks about the past more than any surfer, and he is the best surfer because of that. I feel like he is the representation of where he comes from. And a lot of kids nowadays just think that they come from something totally different.
I was his first sponsor at 10.
That's
The
insane.
reason I sponsored him, because he wouldn't come out of the water. He'd surf all day, and the surf
Still.
was this big, and, you know, he'd just surf and surf and surf.
Yeah. He's still
And I go, he's
good.
going to be one of the greatest, and he is the greatest.
The greatest, for sure.
He sends me stupid direct messages on Instagram so I can repost them. Of just random people eating egg yolks and stuff. And I go, okay,
God.
Kelly, I'll do that, right?
It's so
He
great.
can't.
Yeah.
Right? So he sends it to me, right?
No,
Well, because he has an image to uphold, right? I have none.
He fights with kids about fin sizes, and he's arguing with people about.
And so he sends me silly stuff, and I thought, oh, that's really cute.
That is good. Yeah, I'm very honored to be around, you know, all the history of where I come from. And I hope the kids get to see, you know, this podcast for what it is. And it's educating and where we come from. And that's what I mean. Like my Astrodeck days are the reason why I wanted to be in Taylor Steele's movies. And it's why I wanted to be a pro surfer. Like all my heroes come from those movies. Like Dan Kaloa was my first team manager at Locomotion, and he was the scariest person alive. And I got to meet Mickey Nielsen the other day for the first time since I was little. Just all of it. I know you've seen them all grow into these gnarly. You probably see them as these little kids, like Johnny Boy and all them, and we're scary guys. Yeah, your guys' team was the most gangster surf team ever.
Nobody would sponsor them. They were the baddest
Bad boys.
team ever.
Marvin Foster, man, he was
on the first
baddest
t-shirt.
dude.
Guy on the post office wall.
There you go.
There you go.
That's the baddest man to ever surf right there.
He was great.
He was a best dude.
He was
Loved Marvin.
He kept surfing.
See, and it was about surfing. It wasn't about whether the junior high school principal was going to like it. So we didn't care. Do you understand? And we didn't join a lot of stuff. And I understood maybe we could have done better had we been more willing to play the game a little bit better. But,
Nah.
who cares?
Hey, I wanted to have fun, and you know, everybody hung out at my house, and I owned the house with Jerry, and Jerry, you know, we had a lot of fun.
It was a bad time in surfing, like
And so
a good
in
bad.
the end,
Like
you got to say, we won.
Yeah.
Because we're still together and we're still enjoying it. You just go, oh, that's winning.
It was though. It's the coolest part of surfing at that moment for me, because that's when I wanted to be a pro
Just
surfer.
like when you see those big photos.
Yeah, the big group photos,
Wave warrior photos.
best photos ever.
You know, and you go, that was really surfing at that time. It wasn't. Now when you go to the North Shore, it was like a trade show, and every single company had their houses, and the people didn't fraternize with the ones from the other things. And now surf is owned by, the entire surf companies are owned by authentic brands. They're all owned by one thing.
Yeah.
We're the only surf brand left that's family owned.
I know, it's so weird to see it all in one company.
And so I still do Astrodeck. I just do it a little different. I don't ship the pads. You know, I get a couple, like Lost does them with me. Do you understand them?
Right, you do collabs or whatever they're called.
No, they just do
They just
straight
sell 'em for you?
Astrodeck.
Okay.
Right? But they got young guys to go ship it,
Mm-hmm.
so I do it with them. But Astrodeck should go on.
But the reason why it's still a cool brand is because you didn't compromise.
Never.
And that's why
Never.
it's still a badass brand.
Never.
Yeah.
It is surf.
It is.
It wasn't about checking at retail. It wasn't about corporate money. Do you understand? And maybe that's why we didn't grow it, because to grow these things, you ended up having to borrow money. And honey, there's no free money.
Right. Yeah, they're going to take part of the big business and ruin it. Yeah.
And then they tell you what to do.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of adverse to being told what to do.
Yeah, it shows. It shows. That's why you guys are artistic, because you guys are creative, and no one's getting in the way of that, right? That's incredible, right? I'm so glad you stepped in because
No, she's the best.
You're the best. And I've always heard this. I've always heard so many things about you.
Together, see, just like I help him with the stories of his art and everything. Herbie will make these things, and I see it, and I go, "Oh, dude, that's your story about this." He goes, "Oh, yeah, it is." You know.
I love that you encourage him so much when I know you're such a badass artist yourself, and that just shows your love.
It's okay.
That's the greatest thing in life is to encourage your loved ones.
Great. I think that we make a great team.
Yeah, you do.
You know.
It's incredible.
Yeah, we're kind of the Ricky and Lucy of surf.
Yeah.
What is the husband? Ricardo?
I mean, we're
Babaloo.
right, because that's what I kind of think about. I thought
That's
because
awesome.
we were voted the least likely to succeed, right?
Oh my
And you just go, "Oh, fuck everybody. What do they know?
That's so cool. I know. What the hell do they know?
What do they know?
Exactly.
They don't know, you know? And so I watched from owning the house with Jerry and him at Waimea, you know, and out on the jet ski and doing all these.
Oh yeah, Jerry was in the lifeguard stage or the booth with Dibby and the kids.
Yeah, when he was just eating shit.
Oh, you mean he was watching you out in the big, and Jerry was hanging with you guys?
Uh-huh.
That's insane. Were you ever like kind of worried about your safety of your kids and Herbie when he was surfing?
Chicks and drugs.
Chicks and drugs. That's all you're worried about. You're like, the waves will kill him. Who cares?
No, do you know what? Because they train for it and they're absolutely on point. They're
Right.
fully aware. They're fully there. Do you understand?
Yeah,
Right? And
yeah.
if they get hurt,
They get hurt.
It's okay. They're doing what they love, and that's okay. What can take you down is chicks and drugs.
So true. That's so true. And it's so true about if you're going to get hurt, you're going to get hurt doing whatever you love.
We got in a terrible car accident when we were really young, and these guys hit us on purpose and for no reason. Do you understand? But at that point in time, you realized that if it's coming for you, you're not avoiding it. So be cautious, give it your best shot, and go out and do what you can.
It's very good.
Go for it.
And that's why I created.
Push the limits.
The thrill is
Full
back.
send.
It's so true. Your philosophy is spot on.
Live your life. And what's going to happen is going to happen. And guess what? You'll make it through it or you won't. Oh, well.
That's life, right? I love your philosophy. It's spot on for real. You're telling a 23-year-old girl how to live her life, and she's just bought a
No,
motorcycle.
I'm not telling her. She's going to have her own road to go.
She
I'm
just
telling
bought
you
a
how
mo-
I did it.
She just bought a dirt bike 2 days ago. She's a MMA fighter. This little girl is a bad girl. She's so cool.
I mean, go for it. Send it. Full send. Feel
Full
good.
send.
Be happy. Laugh.
So
Yeah, you know, and pay your insurance.
Yeah. Have good insurance, and then
There you go.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, that is, and you go, you know what? Because I was thinking something. If I didn't do something, I said, well, then what? I'm not going to use the gifts that God gave me. Shame on me.
Yeah. It's true.
Right? Shame on me. And you go, that would be a terrible waste. You know, to have skill and to have talent and say, oh, but I'm afraid or whatever. Do you understand? Or let something step in the way. Just
Yeah. Out of the way.
out of the way. I got to send it. Right?
Now I know exactly why your kids send it so hard. Seriously, mom's like, really? You're not going to go out there? It's only 20 feet. Let's go.
Oh,
Hustle.
don't you remember when your mom said it's still light outside? What are you doing in the house?
Yes. Yeah, my mom.
You know, I mean, that's the way it was. And now the kids are bubble packed.
Right.
And you go, no, we've made a horrible mistake. And so you go, it shows a lack of faith.
Yeah.
And that's the truth. What is the core behind that? It's a lack of faith.
Yeah, I agree with that. My mom just let me go, and I'd write a postcard every few months from overseas. She never told me, like, what are you doing? You know, she just let me live my life, and that's why I have such a great life.
But so she had faith.
Yeah, she had faith. That's what it was.
And so, okay, so somebody said, like they said, oh, well, you know, do you want Nathan surfing those big waves? Well, first of all, it's not my choice one way or the other. Second of all, if I have a problem with it, keep my mouth shut and stay out of the way, because why should I lay that on him and make him feel that
Anxiety.
and you know, that timid,
Yeah.
that's what hurts you.
Yeah.
If you
God.
don't full send, if you choke, that's when you're hurt.
You couldn't be more right.
You know, and so I think, so if you are paranoid or something, go home and read a book and keep your mouth shut. Don't pass that on.
Right. Yeah. Hesitation in surfing gets you hurt.
Hesitation stops the flow.
Gosh, man. You're like a Buddha of surfing.
But well, it's in life in general.
Yeah, no, it is.
When you choke, that's when you get hurt. So you just got to let go.
100%.
Well, that's what Jeremy McGrath said when he knew it was time for him to retire.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Showed up to the track one day and saw the jumps and was like, those look kind of scary today.
See?
And that was
He
he
knew.
was like,
He did, and he was only
Smells
30,
amazing.
32,
Yeah,
1 or
but-
something like that. He's like,
but-
I
I'm
used to
done.
watch him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but you
he's
know what?
incredible.
And that's the point. That when you know, then you go, okay, that's not for me, but I can send it over here. Because as you age, do you understand? Herbie still can't do the stuff he did when he was 25. Why would you want to?
Right.
And so you go, okay, what's plan B? How can I send it and still get that same exhilaration, but using the skills that I have now?
Right.
That's the part when they say age gracefully, that's what they're talking about.
So true. Know your limits. Yeah, know your limits, but keep pushing as hard as you can.
But in a new direction. Do you understand?
Yeah.
I used to run 20 miles a day, every day. I used to carve 8,000-pound stones. I can't do that now physically, and I understand that. But that doesn't mean I can't carve that stone in another manner.
Right.
That I can't go do this great book with Art Brewer's stuff. Do you understand? You're still creating and pushing that creativity. You're just doing it within the parameters of what you're able to do at this point in time.
Yeah, and supporting his art is basically your creation as well by supporting it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Very, very good advice. It's very cool.
So the evolution of big wave riding, I started using life vests.
Right.
On my jet ski and stuff like that. But then I started using them in surf so I could sit on the inside and everybody was sitting on the outside. And yeah, I'd get caught inside, but with a life vest, you just pop back up and everybody would laugh at me. And then I got Nathan using them, right? And everybody laughed at him. But now you see what,
Oh, yeah. It's
everybody's
saved everything.
See, you can still send. You
Yeah.
can do a full send because you've got your insurance.
It's so true. I mean,
and I
that,
got a 2004 right behind you.
That's it.
the life
That blue one right there.
That's right. Yep, that started
And
it
see,
all.
I that's a wakeboard vest, but I pulled out the these because paddling.
Right.
I just pulled them out and glued it back.
Yeah, I mean, it's safe.
Insurance takes
And I
on
could
different
just come
terms.
right up,
Right,
right?
so true, yeah.
And so then the big wave riders just started making all kinds, blow-ups and everything. But this was
Yeah.
sort of the start of the surfing ones.
This is the one that let people send it to another level.
But there was other ones, Coast Guard approved ones that I used before this. This is this one I kept.
It's incredible.
That's
This is one of the best inventions for the surf big wave stuff besides the jet ski for sure right here. That's so cool. Yeah, you were a part of too many things. Inventor for sure. For
No,
sure.
I wanted to come up.
You're a mad scientist.
I wanted to ride big waves and come
right.
up.
You wanted to just do rad shit, and that's
Yeah.
why you invent stuff. For sure.
He wanted to push it.
Yeah.
He wanted to push the limits of what had been able at that time. How can I make something that we can just go that much farther? And so I think.
And
that-
then Laird took it further, and
Yep.
Jamie O and all these guys.
Dorian for sure.
Oh, Dorian's just
Yeah.
insane.
I just think that's what's made our lives more interesting. Just wanting to keep evolving.
Yeah, evolving.
Yeah.
But the reason why it was so cool is because you guys were just doing it because you wanted to evolve and not make profit.
Oh no,
When-
we never
when
made a
it's-
profit.
But
We sucked at that.
profit gets in the way of
We sucked at
honesty and
that.
like
Well, yeah, I
real
didn't know how to
honesty.
use other people's money. Do you
Right.
understand,
Yeah.
right? And I was adverse to that. First of all, I never want to have debt. I'm adverse to that. So when these guys would go upside down and there'd be millions of dollars in debt so the company would get bought, I couldn't sleep at night if I did that.
Yeah.
And so I always just stayed within that I could pay all the bills and I didn't know any debt. And so that doesn't allow you to grow a company.
Right.
You got to be willing to go upside down. But then you sell the company,
Right.
and
just
down
keep
that
going.
road you go.
Right.
And then you sit and cry because you don't have any rights to say anything. Because I see this all around me, right? And I said, well, at least I got to say, right?
Everyone.
You know.
Yep, you're right. I mean, it's everyone. There's not one privately owned company except you guys really left in the whole industry, right? I mean, that's why Burton
And so then
is
people
rad.
come and they tell me, oh, I want to buy your company. What they want to buy is they want to buy our history.
Right.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
And you go, oh, I get it. So you want to go out and use my name, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't marry you, but you want to use my name. okay, that's going to work, and then they want to sell it down the river as quick as they can so they can make the profit and turn it. Do you understand?
And put your clothes at a
I said,
discount.
I'd rather die with the name.
Right. No, it's better to be cool
Because
than
at least
rich.
then it stays clean. It
Right.
will, in the end, it will mean something.
It does mean something now.
But that's what, in the end, it will mean something. Do you understand? It will still mean surf.
Right.
You know, and I don't think most of them do. You know, it's going to be soap on a rope.
It's like what's that little grass thing that grows, the cheetah?
Yeah, well, you know, a
The
chia pet.
It's a
Right.
chia pet. Of
You know, or like Hurley soap on a rope.
Right.
You know, it's just going to be a licensing bonanza for all that.
Like you said, it's nice to sleep at night and know that you've been cool and rather than rich.
That I still have a sense of honor in what I did.
It's nice to be able to sleep at night, like you said. Sure.
Yeah.
You guys have been so awesome, and I'm so glad that Annie got to hear all this because she's so young, she doesn't even know anything, and now she's got all
Yeah, it was
this.
more comedy than you thought, right?
No, the Lucy.
Then you felt really good. You said, "Oh, now I can really cut a loose and laugh," right? Because we laugh at ourselves. I mean, I did this thing. I was doing this little video of Herbie, right, with his artwork, and everybody always in art is so serious, and so Herbie sits down and he goes, "Hi, I'm Herbie Fletcher," and the wind catches the art. The art must. I thought that was so freaking great. I said, "Okay, that's the video we're using, dude," right? And it was charming. Do you understand? Because it was just funny, and
totally.
you know, and you could just feel good and go, "Oh, I love that," right? That's cute.
That's
so anyway.
funny.
And so when I do these little videos with him, you know, and I see him doing something, I said, "Oh, that's the one to keep." That
is super cool. I love
The
it.
outs.
The outtakes.
Yeah, the B-roll, if you will.
But Dibby did a book with Rizzoli.
Yeah,
And
I did. Yeah, it was good.
let's hear about it.
Let's hear about it. Well, it was kind of interesting because, you know, Rizzoli is one of the top publishers in the world. They do beautiful art books and everything, right? And I got involved. They wanted to do this book. Well, they don't know anything about surfing. And then they got an art director, and the art director kept saying, "Well, you know, we've just got to have the pictures really big." And so if you're very familiar with print at all, if you blow up something and the surfer's in the frickin' crack, I don't care. It's shit, right? So I kept having these conversations with him, and, you know, finally he was smart and said, "I'll let you do it." I said, "You'll take the credit." I said, "But why don't you let me do the art direction?" And so, you know, we can have some nice borders around it, but the photographs will have that real kind of life that you're going to need. Because when people don't know anything about surf, they don't know what they're looking at.
Right.
And they don't know that you can't have the action in the crack of the book. Do you understand?
Usually they flip the stance around, which drives me nuts.
Right. And
Yeah. Marvin Foster, regular.
Oh, they
flip.
wanted to do that too for the cover.
Oh yeah, because they said, "Oh, it'll look better like this." I said, "Yeah, but every surfer in the world's going to know it's backwards." They said, "Really? How could you tell?"
Oh,
You
my
said,
God.
"Oh." But anyway, it was another fun experience working. See, when you work out of surf with people that don't know about it, but I did learn something interesting. That's who your consumer is.
Right.
You know, it's not someone that does know.
Right.
So can you meet somewhere in the middle to make them happy with what they're seeing and let them experience something that you know without kind of hitting them over the head with it?
Yeah. And if you're a real surfer and you see one thing that's wrong, you only think of that one thing that's wrong.
Right.
That Momentum movie they made, they had one wave of someone switch dance, and I was like, you have to cut that out or the whole movie's stupid. And it meant that much to me because I was like, everyone's going to know that guy's regular foot. What are you doing? And they didn't know. And I was like, oh, you can't screw that up. Real surfers will freak out. You can't make mistakes like that. Yeah.
Well, you grew up at Pipeline too.
You don't want to fuck up someone's stance though. It's so bad.
You have to keep the integrity of what you're doing.
Right.
And the integrity to the surf world to portray it correctly. I said, otherwise it's just not. I became a ballroom dancer. You know, that was kind of a sidebar. I became a ballroom dancer. It was fun. I went all over the world ballroom dancing. And so they have a language, and they have clothing, and they have a whole vocabulary that's to its own. Do you understand, right? And I was going to do a dance magazine because I thought, oh, that's kind of random. I should do that. That's going to be really fun. And so I was working on it and stuff. And you realize that each different cultural dance has its own language, its own clothing, and everything else. And so it was, and then I figured, okay, so I go down the road, I'm collecting all this stuff, and it was so much fun. I loved it. And I said, who could I get to advertise? And so you go, oh, I couldn't make any money in this, but I went down the road. It was a fun art project, is really what it was, right?
Yeah, we did the whole magazine.
Passion
But
project.
the point I'm making is that whatever you're doing, you have to be true to the voice that you're trying to create, whether it's surf or whether it's dancing or whatever it is, wakeboarding, right?
No, 100%.
Because otherwise you're not being true to that real.
Yeah, and people can see it, you know.
Yeah, that you're just doing it to throw shit on the wall.
Totally.
Right? You need to scrape that up and start over.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Well, thank you guys so much for doing the podcast and telling this. Debbie, I wish more than anything this camera that's on me was on you. More than anything, I'm so bummed.
yeah, Debbie's
I'm
the
so
best.
bummed that she's not in camera. But 99% of our people listen and not
But
watch.
but
But
Herbie and I are just kind of, I think it's fun together because it's an interesting kind of play off
It
of
is.
each other.
and I can tell how much you guys love each other, and that's more important than anything. Yeah, and you guys have created so much. It's insane. And you guys are still doing it. So it's really inspiring.
How about 7.5 acres to build a sculpture garden?
Yeah.
Dude,
It's gonna be like Breaking Bad.
I'm
meets
telling
freaking
you
art
something,
and
it's
cool
going to be
shit.
fantastic. You just
Yeah.
go, oh, God, we have the freedom to do what.
I know, because you guys are from a place where if you guys put like anything in your yard, you get yelled at. And
Oh,
in
dude,
this area, it
you
must
got to
be
gift
horrible.
wrap the frickin' trash. Right? Oh.
Yeah, I know.
No, and so this, because there is no HOA or anything like that, we can really do pretty
Yeah.
much of what we want. So first of all, the house we're going to do is going to be turquoise with magenta doors, right? And hot pink pillars on it.
Sick.
It's going to be look like that painting.
That's so cool. Are you guys going to put some of this stuff, like maybe the ahi or anything out as one of the
No,
sculptures?
it
You're going to
needs-
recreate
it
all
needs-
new stuff.
No, it needs new.
It needs all new. That's fun. What do you usually sculpt out of? Metals and different, just anything that you can find your hands on, or is that
This a lot of it would be metal and then
Metal.
plaster as well.
cool?
You know, because you can shape
I've been a
foam.
stone sculptor, but that's the really intensive work. It's like digging up a street.
Well, we're gonna have
Right.
stones out there, big giant.
So all
things.
kinds of different formats. Wow, that's going to be so fun.
I don't want to limit ourselves,
Right.
you know?
You're going to have to do it probably September to May, though. It's probably pretty warm. But then you can do them here
Probably
and bring
October
them out.
to-
Right, and then just have it trucked out.
Of course. I didn't even think about that. Duh. Yeah, that's going to be cool when Kalani's wave pool's done. You got to do one for his wave pool. Some cool
But I think it's
sculpture.
going to be fun. I think it's just it's just another adventure.
Yeah.
It's just time to do something new.
That's keep the, what is it, the stoke alive? No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Keep
the
the
thrill is
stoke
back
alive.
and getting better.
It's getting better.
Yeah.
I love it. I mean, that was why Jake was my hero of all heroes. He's just like Herbie with the energy level and just always wanting to do something new. Like, that's why we were talking about the past. It's actually what's going to happen tomorrow and today, and keep busy and keep going. Because retiring isn't an actual
Oh
thing.
no!
That's not a thing that he taught me.
That's the
That's
the
the death
death
of you.
certificate.
He'd always told me, he goes, people that retire are just saying they want to die. That's all it is. Because if you do something that you love,
You
like
have,
you guys.
but you always have to be challenged.
Right.
Because that's goal orientated. That means you got to just, oh, I can do that. I can do that. Oh,
Ballroom
maybe
dancing.
I can do that. Oh, I can do that. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
It's exciting. And that's why your kids are great. You know, they see their parents doing stuff that are really hard. They're like, why shouldn't I be able to do it? You know, it's inspiring, you guys.
I thought the desert might need a little Herbie and Dibby.
Yeah, it could. It could use a little bit of funk out there.
I thought so. I said, oh, I think we need to spread it around a
Yeah.
bit. Right?
Is the community out there pretty cool? Have you met anyone out there? Or is it just a piece of land right now, right?
Actually, the land originally, my grandfather got it during the Homestead Act. That is when the government decided to take Indian land years ago and said, well, we need a revenue. So what we're going to do is we'll give you 5 acres for $500 if you improve it. So people put little homes up, do you understand?
Mm-hmm.
My grandfather ended up getting 15 acres. So years ago, my dad gave me 2.5 acres out of his 5 acres, right? And so my uncle Flippy, he gave his 5 acres to his girlfriend. So I tried to buy it from her. She did not like me, so she would not sell it to me. So it's been sold 3 more times, and it came up, and I saw it on one day and said, I need that. And so now it's back to me, which it should be. I felt my grandfather saying, good girl.
That's cool.
And I said, yes.
Yeah.
So now I've got that acreage, and I'm going to make a beautiful place for Herbie and I.
That's freaking awesome. I absolutely love it. Debbie, you're an inspiration for real. And a really good advice that you gave. Everybody, it's true though.
Send it.
Send it.
All the time.
Send it,
She
girl.
sends it, this girl.
Yeah. While you still can, because when you're my age, send is going to mean something different.
Right.
And that's okay too.
Yep, that is okay.
When people say, oh, well, you're not this age, I said, no, thank God. I've already done that one. Some of them were a little tough.
That's so great.
Yeah.
Well, Herbie, I appreciate you for all you've done for surfing and wakeboarding and all these other things. That's really awesome. Skateboarding.
I started skating pools in 63, 64, right around there.
You've definitely had your hand in it.
And got photos from Ron Stoner.
Yeah, I always remember you being a photographer as well. Just another little, you'd always take pictures of pipe. I remember on the beach and all kinds of different
Still
stuff.
doing it.
We have
Still doing it,
beautiful,
yeah.
he has beautiful photos. We just did a photo show in Japan with his photos.
Sweet. Well, thank you guys so much. We ran out of batteries, but the coolest part about it is we still have audio, and I appreciate it, you guys, for letting us into your home in the museum of all museums. I just want to spend a week in here with Kelly, and we could go through it all. Because Kelly, I played golf with Kelly 2 days ago, and he's got to get maybe some work done on his hip or something. But I told him I was going to come and see Herbie, and he loves you guys. He absolutely loves you guys. He just loves everything good about surfing. Like, he's the truth.
And because we're real surf.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. He loves the real surf.
We didn't make the millions of dollars. We didn't do some giant company. And you know what? We just stayed ourselves.
Right.
And so in the end, you just go, that's really something I think that's valuable, that you can stay yourself when all the world around you goes mad.
Right.
And
That's
they
very
all want you
true.
to go with them.
Yeah, even the magazine's disappearing and you're still here.
Come on, Vivi, you can sell the company. You can do this. You can do that. I said,
No way.
no.
Well, I'm glad you did it.
I don't want a boss.
Yeah. Well, don't.
I already have a husband, right? And I've got that pretty well wired. I don't need a boss now.
Well, good luck with all your guys' art, too, in the next show. Let me know. I know when I hit him up about the podcast 2 weeks ago, he was doing a show. So good luck with the next one, and appreciate you guys so much. All you guys, thanks for pottying with us.